All right. Oh, we forgot to do our thing.
Happy Monday.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. We are a little close, aren't we? We're going
Yeah.
to try it this way, see if
Okay.
this works.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Trauma Talks and Truths. We are super excited to be here. And I want to, before we get started today, Nina, I want to share two things.
Okay.
The first thing is I am starting a 52-week journey, a journaling journey of really deep self-reflection. And I've actually written a corresponding journal that you can buy from Amazon. And I'm hoping that it'll be up in the next 2 days, but I'm starting this journaling journey in our Love Being community. So it is I Am Loved, the Love Being spiritual community. Okay, so that's on Facebook. And so please join us. If you're interested, I'm going to be posting one prompt every week. And then I'm going to give you some guidance about how to kind of move through the self-reflective process. The second thing I want to announce is that Mark and I are going to be on today, later on today, 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time. And we're going to be talking about spiritual burnout and what happens with some folks who are just wanting to consume so much information and without really kind of allowing it to just sort of land and make sense in your brain and your body and your spiritual awareness. So those two announcements. Good morning, Nina. How are you?
Morning, Isella. I'm good. How are you doing this Monday morning?
I'm good. I'm doing well.
Really good.
So our topic today, my husband and I were actually lying in bed on Sunday, and he watches a lot of stuff on the stock market. He is, I would say, probably in the level of becoming an expert in the stock market. And there was a man that was talking about his top 10 books for 2024. And the first one he started with was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And this has been a book. Yes, there's my copy. When was this book published?
Oh, that's a good question.
1997. It has been around for a long time. And this book continues to show up. If you haven't read it, please pick up. It's a small book, whether you do Audible or an audio book, because it's not just Audible, but an audio book. I think this is easily accessible. Even if you're have a membership or a library card, you can get it probably online as well. But it is a book that continues to stand the test of time. And so my husband and I were talking about it because we're both very familiar with it. I read it many times, even did book clubs with it. And he was like, you guys should talk about this tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea.
And for those of you who are worried about if the Audible is boring, it's not. It's really good on Audible too. I have it on both. Yeah.
I have not listened to it. I've only read it. I will probably do that because I do have extra credits to use. So here's my guess. My guess is that we're only going to get through 2 today.
Okay.
Because I have a lot to say about each one. And there's 4. There's 4 agreements. And so I don't know if we'll be able to get through. We'll try. We'll try to do all 4. And if not, it'll be a part 1 and a part 2. Okay.
Okay.
So the 4 agreements are: number 1, be impeccable with your word. Okay. Number 2 is not to take things personal. You don't want to take things personally. Number 3 is don't make assumptions. And number 4 is always do your best. I'm telling you, if we lived by these just in life, I think our lives would be so different. in this world.
Yeah.
All right. So impeccable, be impeccable with your word. This is the actual definition from the book. Okay. It is to speak with integrity, say only what you mean, and avoid using the word to speak against yourself or others. Interesting that I get that. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. All right. So, what are your thoughts, your initial thoughts about this, Nina?
What stood out to me is when you said, don't use the word against yourself, right? Like we can be some of our worst critics and we can be very harsh with ourselves. And this is not externally, this is in our mind when I'm talking about. Like we do this internal beat up often, and we would never let anybody else talk.
Say more about that, Nina.
We
more about the internal beat up.
Like we would never let anyone else talk to us that way, but we will talk to ourselves that way. You know, it can sound anywhere from like, you know, you're dumb, you're fat, you're you suck. You know, whatever the language is, we use our words, and they can be very defeating because our words are important because they create emotion, they create feelings, right? So it would be like somebody standing outside of you telling you these negative things, and you're going to feel discouraged, defeated, shame, guilt. All the low vibrational energies are created with your mind, your words in your mind.
Yeah. You know, I have heard so many people say these words. I am so stupid. I've heard so many people do something by accident and say something like that.
Yeah.
I fucking did it again. You know, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. And I'm like, don't say that about my friend. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more common than not for people to be so self-critical. And I think that that's a learned experience. The way that I kind of envision this is that there was a voice who said these things to us, and then it's kind of like in like an Olympic event with the baton. We just take the baton and we continue that voice, and that becomes our internal self-talk. And if you don't know me, you may not know that I worked with kids for a very, very long time. And I've always known that the way that I talk to not only myself, but to them is going to become their internal self-talk. So I would literally speak to myself out loud when I worked with children. And so what I would say is, oh my goodness, I don't know where I put the scissors. I'm going to think about it for a minute because I'm sure I put them in a place where I was using something. Like I would speak that way instead of, I can't find it. And I can't believe I lost it. And why do I keep doing this? And why can't I hold on to things? And so I started doing that many, many years ago. And it actually started from an observation that I had of a teacher getting flustered that way. And I said to her, and I think it's because I actually didn't do that kind of self-talk a lot growing up. I don't remember if I did. I don't remember a time when I berated myself in my head.
Oh, really?
And I saw a teacher. Yeah, I didn't do that. And so I saw a teacher do that to her. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that again. I always do that. And I said, why do you talk like that to yourself? Like there was a genuine question. Like, why do you, because it was under her breath. It was in the closet. She was like trying to pull stuff out for the day. And I'm like, why do you do that to yourself? And I realized that that's really common for people to do that to themselves. And to what you were saying about energy, words are energy.
Mhm.
Words create things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so whether we are speaking to somebody or we are speaking to ourselves, we are creating a vibrational frequency within that energy that
Yeah.
can actually heal or harm.
Right. And some of the other thoughts that came to me while you're talking, which is so cool how you didn't talk to yourself that way, because I definitely have a history of talking to myself negatively. But sometimes it just sounds like I'm such a procrastinator,
Hmm.
or I'm undisciplined, or I just can't, I'm struggling with, or I just can't get myself to do, like, and it sounds like you're just sharing the news, like facts,
But
right?
do you take it? So if you say that, if you go, because I know I've said, oh yeah, I'm procrastinating. I'm trying to kind of figure out, do I say those things as a way of my identity, as I own it, take it personal, or
Right.
do I simply see it as an observation of how I behave?
Right.
Does
Like
that make sense?
there's two different things, right? Like if you're
Right.
saying, I noticed I procrastinated on this today, it's like
Hmm.
you're not judging yourself, you're not taking it on as your identity. But I think what I am speaking about is when you do,
Hmm.
and you feel so much shame and guilt, and you don't really want to tell people, you know, that you are a procrastinator and that you cannot overcome this thing in your life. That's kind of my experience of that.
So I wouldn't say, I think I'm gonna watch myself, because I don't think I would say I am a procrastinator. I think I would say I procrastinate at times.
At times. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my verbiage.
Mhm.
Um,
It removes the charge,
yeah,
right? It removes the identity of it, and there's
yeah,
no emotion with it. You're not like feeling any sort of way by the noticing. Is that fair to say?
yeah. I think that's what it is. I tend to, and I'm not, it's simply an observation of what I do at times. It's not something that I've identified with, because I think what we don't understand is that, truly understand that our self-talk and really plays a part on our ability to manifest.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
it
you
really plays into what the life we desire to have. But if your self-talk is focusing on all the things that you are not wanting or not proud of or feeling some frustration about, you are creating a vibrational frequency that's simply going to attract that.
yeah. Yeah. So we talked about our self talk. What came to you when you think of be impeccable with your word?
Okay, another thing I learned from kids, working with kids, there's a thing that I say. You say what you mean what you say 100% of the time. You say what you mean what you say 100% of the time. One of my biggest pet peeves, one of the things that I struggle with in other people that I have to like become very super hyper aware of, is someone who is passive aggressive.
Mm.
So someone who feels one way and says something else. Okay. So how are you doing? I'm fine. I'm fine. It's fine. Okay. But we know it's not, right? No, it's okay. I'll take care of it. I'll do it. I always do it.
Mhm.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you don't want to,
Mhm.
you know? So when we're dishonest with what it is we want or we're feeling, and we just and it really is like, some people do that because it's appeasing, because it's
Yeah.
like, this is what you want me to do, and I just lose my freaking mind. I'm like, just say what you need, just say what you want. I have, in the last probably 15 years, I have been much more, I don't think the word is tolerable, but I've been much more empathetic. Like I can be, but I'm like, just say it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think being impeccable with your word is actually learning to communicate in a way that conveys what it is you are truly wanting and what you're truly thinking, and that we are not having to play a guessing game, and that there is no, you're not manipulating, you don't have ill intent, that you're not trying to do a workabout, and that you're simply afraid of being able to speak your truth.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when there's an appeased response or fawning response. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't even come off as passive aggressive. It comes off as a yes. It's like, okay, you know? Yeah, that is, I really like the just say what you mean and mean what you say, right? Out loud. Because if you had the courage to say your truth in the moment, you won't have to sit with it after.
Mhm.
You just said the thing, right? And your body, when we are not used to speaking our truth, you're most likely, when you start the process of saying what you mean, like really mean what you say, you're going to have some sort of response in your body, whether it's anxiety, nervousness, so maybe, your whole body could get hot, flush, right? Because you're so concerned about what the other person's going to think. But there's another one of these 4 agreements is coming in there because you're assuming something.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's a process to be able to do that if you're not used to it.
I had a little graphic in my office, every office I had. I took it with me, and it says, it's actually a quote. I'm going to butcher it. I don't know who said it. I should know it because I hung it in my every office I ever had. It said, say what you need to say, even if your voice shakes. And it's really hard when you have been raised in a home where your voice didn't matter. No one asked your opinion. And you might even get, physically hurt, harmed, or emotionally hurt, harmed for speaking your thoughts, your ideas, your perspectives, your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was one of my, especially as a leader of a program where I have to address things that I would rather not address. I have to hold people accountable at times that I do not. I would rather just hide in my office all day long. Um, that idea of say what you need to say, even if your voice shakes, was something that I would say to myself. Like, I need to be able to articulate this in a way that, because I work really hard as well, not just saying what needs to be said, but the way in which I say it. I need to come from a place of kindness. I need to come from a place of being emotionally responsive to their needs and what it is that they're feeling and experiencing. I want to make sure that I'm not shutting down the conversation or in some way blaming them.
Mm-hmm.
So the art of communication is a significant part of this. And most people have not only been not been taught, but have ever even witnessed people speaking with one another in respectful ways.
Yeah, that's very true.
Hmm.
If you have never witnessed two people communicating healthily,
Yeah.
How do you know how would you know how to speak your truth in a kind, way? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have, and I'm creating a new one because in my readings this weekend that I did live, there was someone who there was something that came up in the reading about the way in which we communicate with one another. And there are ways that you can say things that don't come off as being it's not aggressive. You're being assertive, but even assertiveness can freak people out.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are soft ways to engage in a conversation where you're making a point and yet you are still being responsive to their emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
I think we communicate in ways that feel good for us.
Right.
Right? aren't in the practice of going, how is this going to land with her? What can I say to ensure that we're going to, have a good dialogue? How do I make this a forward moving experience as opposed to just saying what I need to say? Like, there's a lot of thought that goes into this experience of communication. And so I think being impeccable with our word not only means saying what we need to say, but the way in which we say it, we need to really explore that more. And so I'm creating a document of what I call these simple scripts to be able to help you start difficult conversations and even work through navigating them when they get a little tricky and you do get activated.
I think that's really great, Isela, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, Isela and I come from a trauma-informed lens when we're even just here talking to you. That's kind of running in the background of our minds and our hearts. And one thing that came to me was in relationship with anyone, our attachment styles are there.
Right.
So it would be different if we were all walking around with a secure attachment style, but we're not all walking around with secure attachment styles. So our attachment styles are, I was going to say clouding, but they're painting the way we communicate, right? If I'm afraid that you're going to not accept me, I might communicate in a certain way, right?
Without question.
Right. Or I'm afraid that you'll leave me, or that you will judge me. Things are not going to come out the way that, that I want them to. So I think that's great that you're creating that, because a lot of us need that.
I think what you are saying, it just reminds me of something that happened, because I've worked with a lot of people where I was like the leader or like the boss person, right? And there were many times that I worked with people who I could get a sense that they would go along with what I was saying for the sake of going along with what I was saying, because I was the boss person, I was the supervisor, I was the lead, whatever it was. And there have been so many experiences, then I would just sit back and go, okay, I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're thinking, and I want to know how you're making sense of this. Like, it may not be what I think, and it may not be what I want, but I want to know what your perspective is. And I will tell you that there are so many people that have not been actually asked that question. What is it that you want? And sometimes even sitting with that question can be scary, because they haven't explored, what do I really want? Because I've put my kids first. I've put everybody else telling me what to do first. I'm not in the practice of knowing what my needs are, much less being able to articulate them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really huge. And I can relate to that a lot on my journey. We're not in the practice of asking ourselves what we want.
We become threatened by people who have different perspectives than our own.
Yes.
And so if you're approaching a situation and you're working to be impeccable with your word, you also have to be open to the understanding that they too get to be impeccable with their word. Yeah. And when we can invite the conversation by saying, I'm interested in knowing more about your perspective. Tell me why you believe that to be true. Mm-hmm. Help me understand why this versus this makes more sense to you. And I need to be okay with their perspective.
Right. And being okay is not just in the mind, it's in the body. Yes. Because when you said the word threatened, it's the body that is threatened or activated or nervous or some sort of emotion. I remember this was a big deal on my healing journey. I remember feeling so uncomfortable when even family members that I think a lot alike would have a different opinion than me. And because my, main trauma response was appease or fawning, or freeze, I would just not share my opinion. And because I just wouldn't share my opinion, I didn't know what my opinion was often. Mm-hmm. And when I was asked my opinion, I remember feeling so anxious. I didn't want somebody to ask me what my opinion about something was, because I didn't know. I was just, I didn't need to know my opinion. I just needed to, because I was so good at like listening, so good at holding space. Like I just never shared my opinion. But if I did have opinion that was different, I was so afraid to share it. Yeah.
Would you sometimes go along with people without even, like, let's say you were making a decision about something without even giving yourself the opportunity to go, what is it that I want right now? Or what is it that you just were like, sure, whatever it is you want.
Just gonna just go along with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm opinionated when it comes to like things I want, I mean, like things I want to eat or places I want to go, like those kinds of things. That was fine. I'm going to tell you like that is. But if it was an opinion about life or politics or, I mean, just like things that are values or, I would just kind of go along because I did not feel safe to express myself, but also even to ask myself, what do I think?
Yeah.
I have like a specific situation where my brother was asking me, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And he's like, no, I want to know you. That I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. And I just remember feeling afraid to share what my opinion was. Yeah.
Well, and I think in part, when you do have this attachment style, your sole purpose is to seek love, connection, and affection. Like you're seeking it in the way that you know how. And so by not creating waves and by doing exactly what the other person likes, you're going to stay in a safe space where you can be loved and connected with and all the things that we just innately need. Right.
Yeah. And I remember, okay, so I went to the somatic immersion event where like you're working on your nervous system patterns. And it was this year. And one of the things they did, without like divulging everything they did, was you were trying to uncover your nervous system response, like your flight, fight, freeze, appease. Which one was your like go-to, your top two? And in this exercise, they were like shouting things that would trigger or activate you. And one of the things that they did that activated me so heavily, even when I wasn't the person that was doing it, was, what do you choose? What do you choose? What do you choose? What do you choose? And I was so freaking activated by that question. What do you choose? And my body was just like, I don't know, and so it did, needless to say, it really helped me work through some patterning in my nervous system. But I mean, what do you choose is a really hard question for someone who was their primary, strategy was to appease. So I don't know what I choose because I haven't been choosing for me for my whole life. Yeah.
My I'm trying to think of what I do in situations when I'm triggered. And I'm the fight. I'm the fight.
Fight.
Yeah.
I had zero fight.
I'm the fight. I'm like, we're going to go down right now. We're going to go down.
Exercise again. And I had a little fight. I was like celebrating myself. Like,
yeah.
A little fight.
Yeah. I'm the fight, but I think it served me well in a lot of things. I've had to, I've been in difficult situations with kids where a kid had been overdosing, not overdosing intentionally, but the doctor had overdosed the child. This child was partially blind, partially paralyzed, and nonverbal. And the medication that the doctor was giving put him into full-on seizure. And I remember this like it was yesterday because it was such a huge event in my life, because the other teacher who was there, who was actually closest to him, I was in the other part of the classroom, she went into a panic and she froze. And I was one of those that just went right into action. Like something happened and I'm like, bam, I'm there. Like I was doing full on CPR. I was like telling people, you go do this, go do that, get the kids, like I'm that. And then after it happened, that's when I'm like, when I'm just like crying and like my whole body's shaking. But in the moment, I am the one that like I respond and I respond quickly and I think quick on my feet. And it was something that I learned as a child. Like I had to figure out how to, survive my experience, and I had to be a quick thinker. And so we can look at these situations and go, okay, how has that served me?
Sure.
Right. And then now what I've learned over the course of my adult life is how do I be much more emotionally responsive to other people? Because I can feel threatening to other people. My kid will say, they're scared of you. They're scared of you. Everybody's scared of you. I'm like, why? I'm really nice. Person.
Mark is chiming in the comments, and I can relate. Mark is saying how, like, in those emergency situations, he responds quickly. And I can relate. I remember when I used to work for the Army, I have time, in certain situations where my freeze and appease weren't the top two, right? I would react in a different way.
I do not look mean, Mark.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But so, of course, the trauma lens, when we're teaching any topic, we have to not forget that, right? To not forget our nervous system is playing a part hugely in the way we respond, the way we speak. When we're regulated, we speak a lot more impeccably, right? Before we move on to the next one, though, something that's coming to me is be impeccable with your word, meaning like, do what you say you'll do. Be impeccable with the word you commit to yourself. And this is definitely a growth area for me. Whenever, and many of my clients too, it's like, they'll say, I do when I say I'm going to do something for somebody else, I show up. But when we say we're going to do something for ourselves, we don't show up. Right. And so that is another thing that that's coming to me hugely right now. So,
I think we all struggle with that.
Yeah.
I mean, from even like caring for our bodies, caring for like sleep for me has something that, over the course of my adult life, everyone's like, are you making sure you're getting enough sleep? And I'm like, yeah, I get like 4 hours. I'm good. You do realize that 4 hours is not good, right? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm fine.
We had that conversation so many times.
Yeah. So many times. And then I go, no, I am. I'm gonna make that a priority in my life. And then I go back into the old pattern, right? Because really that's what's pulling us back in is the old patterns of behavior that just, it's what's familiar, it's what's comfortable, and it's what feels safe. The other thing that I want to talk about, did you have something else to say about that?
No, I was just laughing at Mark. He's like, yep, 4 is not enough. But when I was in the military, that's what they trained us on. It was like 4, if you could just get 4 hours of sleep, you can do anything the next day. But you know what? I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Or
it is different.
Not now. I cannot survive. If I get 4 hours of sleep, I am not functioning well the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is very true now for me. Yeah, but I did function on very little sleep. I think the other thing, energetic boundaries are really important as well. We need to start saying no when we mean no. We need to start saying, and I think there were a few times in my life where I'll say yes because I feel like I need to or I should, and I'm the one who can. Just given my family circumstances, just given, my flexibility in my work day, it just makes sense that I can do it. And I can. It's just sometimes I'm like, I just want to sit at home and not do anything, but I can. So I'll do it and I won't feel any guilt or resentment or angry or anything that from saying yes instead of no. But boy, this is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Big time.
Is saying no when you mean no. And instead doing whatever it is that you're being asked to do. And I will tell you that when we do that, we are really being disrespectful to our truest self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark says he was definitely a yes man.
Really? I
I'm
didn't.
shocked
I
too.
I could see that, like, sometimes you being a yes man, huh? I have to kind of, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that this evening, Mark. And Sally, you're saying sometimes you get tired of putting the ego in the back seat. Yeah. I think the key isn't to dismiss the ego in this experience of being impeccable with our word. I think the key is to really make ego our ally, to really invite our ego in, to have a deeper understanding as to why, the whys. Why am I wanting to respond this way instead of this way? Why am I reacting in this way? Where is this coming from within me? Is this something happening within my body? Is this an old memory of something? It's being curious about why, like just about, the words you're choosing or not choosing in this conversation.
Yeah. And you said like, where is it coming from? And I like to say the words like, what is the come from behind the yes?
Mm.
So if you can really get to the deeper place, it might be that like you're the only one in the family and you kind of don't want to do it, but you're willing to right now. But sometimes the why is tied to a belief about yourself. I want to believe that I'm a good wife. I'm the best mother. I'm the one I'm the responsible one in my family. Right? So if I can say yes to this, I can hold on to this identity that I have, and then everybody else will love me and I will love me. And so getting to the root of the yes, especially if you don't want to do it, like you really don't want to do it, but you're shitting on yourself because like you have this story about yourself that you have to do it in order to fulfill that identity. That's when you're truly abandoning yourself to fulfill this identity. Am I making sense, Isela?
Yeah,
No.
absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So we've only talked on the first one. Okay. So I told you this was like a two-parter. Okay. So we're gonna go into the second one. Okay, for this one. And then we're not going to be here. We should have started this on the front end. I'll post something that we both have something going on tomorrow. So we will not be live tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday. Okay. All right. So number 2 is to not take things personally. Now, the definition from the book, the way it's described is nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Man, this is a whole conversation of its own. This is huge, huge. It's why wars are started. All right. Where do you want to start with this?
What's coming up for you? Like something. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I do like a full day's training on not taking things personally. What I actually come from is from the very beginning is the patterns that we have grown up with. And we are actually trained and conditioned to take things personally. We are trained and conditioned to do that from our parents, because when they get pissed off, they want us to take it personal, right?
Yeah.
Like they want us to respond, because if you didn't take it personally, then you'd be like, I don't care. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. Right. And so we're trained to actually hear a message and to respond to that message, because it is landing on what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what I didn't do, what I didn't say. And I need to do something. Like that's a condition or conditioning that we all engage in. And so we are taught to take things personally from a very young age. And then as we get older, because of that conditioning, we do seek approval, attention, and affection from others.
Yeah.
It's all that external input that we're taking in.
We're not educated on the human brain either. Mark said, was this supposed to be a short session? And Mark, if you know me and Isela, we say we're going to like do something short, and there's no way we can talk for 10 minutes. Like, it's just not it. So, but like, we're not really educated. We're these human beings, and we're really not educated on how the human being works, right? Like, we're not told that you are egocentric when you are a little kid, and that at some point you can stop letting things be personal, right? Like, you can stop making it mean that you did something wrong. But like, when in my household, let's say I didn't hug someone, because we have to hug everybody when we see them. And if I didn't hug someone and I was a kid, they'd be like, "Oh, you made me feel bad,"
Mhm.
or, it was a big deal. And so they're taking things personally, so they just teach you how. And so when we're a kid and our caregivers are being them, and maybe they're not giving you attention, affection, and love that you need, you never say, "Oh, they don't," unless you're Isella. But you never say, like, they don't know what they're doing. It has nothing to do with me. You take it personally. You make it mean like I did something wrong. I am wrong. I am bad. Right. And then we just never are, we're never told that actually you don't need to do that anymore.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
But I think we're all conditioned that way. We're all conditioned that way. And when we're very young, the adults, because they didn't get their needs met,
Mhm.
they don't know how to not take things personal either. It is a direct reflect, or it's a direct impact. You
Mhm.
say something, do something, having an experience. One of the things, again, because I work with kids, is that, you know, as adults, we have a whole gamut of emotions, right? Like one minute we're feeling good and it's going to be a good day. And then I can't find my keys. I can't find my keys. And I'm like really pissed off because I'm late. And so
Yeah.
then I get into the car and I got good music going on. And now I feel okay. I got my keys, I'm driving in the car. Now I feel okay. And so we're this constant state of up and down in 3 hours. We
Mhm.
are in this up and down sort of experience. Children experience that too. They're up and down, but we don't let them have a
Right.
bad day. We don't let them have their big emotions. We don't let them have their sadness because
Mhm.
it's uncomfortable to us. So we shut that shit down,
Yeah.
right? And we're telling the story of you're being selfish, you're not, you aren't doing the things that I asked you to do, and that's why it's like we make all these stories up and we take it personal as though they are not grateful,
Mhm.
or I find it really fascinating how we're so disconnected from those two things.
Well, because I need them to, it's like you said, I need, we're not educated or maybe experienced in getting our own needs met. So I need you to act a certain way so I can get my need met. And my need is to think that I'm a really good mom. So I
Right.
need you to be like in line, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I need you to never embarrass, never do things that I get embarrassed by. I almost said that
Yes.
wrong. Right. I need you to do those things. Right.
Yep.
And so the key to what Isel is saying is we get our needs met ourselves. We
Yeah.
don't get our needs met by anyone else outside of us. It just is impossible. Relationship, kids, bosses, like they can't meet your needs.
Yeah, there's another little thing that I used to, God, I'm so full of these mantras that really help me move through the course of my life. One of that kind of aligns with don't take it personal. Um, is the one that says, it's again a quote that I'm probably going to butcher, but it's no one can make you feel anything without your consent.
That's a good one. Mhm.
That was really huge for me
Why not?
because I used to go into programs that were really shitty and I used to flip them. And so what I mean by that is I would make a program that was kind of harmful and not only get them functioning well, but get them nationally recognized. And so I used to go into situations where I was not well liked initially. Eventually, we would build a sense of community and connection, and it was awesome. But in the beginning, you kind of have to do a shakedown because there are things that should not be happening.
Mhm.
So I really had to learn how to allow people to have their own experience of me and know that because I was bringing in change was really hard for people. And that, I acknowledge that change was hard because, I was taking away what was familiar and comfortable and when they felt their sense of power. And acknowledging that and still being able to walk down the hallway and still being able to show up and not feel so beaten down. I think this happens a lot on social media now. Like I was watching a psychic medium, young psychic medium, probably 22, 23. She was doing readings live. And I don't know what happened because I came in right after, but somebody may have said something or did something, because there are a lot of trolls. There are a lot of people who are just mean and nasty online. And she's sobbing. She's like crying and she's like, I'm just trying to help people. I'm just trying to bring messages that will bring some, what did she say? Some peace to people. And I don't come on here to be attacked and ridiculed. And why are you guys so mean? And, it's one of those things where my heart felt like for her. And then there's a part of me also, because I want to make sure, if I was with her, I would acknowledge what she was feeling and how hard it is to experience that when people are just yelling at you. And I also want her to know that there's always going to be people that are going to hate you.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people that are trying to cut you down at your knees.
And it's often a reflection of their inner world.
Right.
So whatever they're saying to you. Now, I mean, when you're in relationship, let's say, Isela, how would you handle this? Like, let's say you're in a relationship and your husband comes to you and he says, I noticed that lately you've been like really snippy and you snap really quickly at me and your daughter or whatever, how do you not take that personally?
Because he's making an observation. Yeah. And so instead of going, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. That's you. If you would act like a decent human being, then I wouldn't have to do that. Right.
Yeah.
I would say, tell me more about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me more about when that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if you can be, let's even say like you realize, you self-reflect, you need to be able to self-reflect, right? But you realize that like, okay, I notice I am snapping or reacting in a way I don't want to react. It's still not personal. Like you don't have to say to yourself that, for example, something's wrong with me. It's just like, oh, I am getting defensive. Is this a pattern I want to change? Right? It's not meaning anything about your value as a human being, though. And I think that's where we get really, we get tangled up in that. Like, now I'm a bad person because I react this way, as opposed to like I'm a human being who reacted that way.
Yeah. There's another little piece to this. And I think it comes from the same place within us of seeking approval. So we take things personal because we want people to love us. So when we get something from that's negative or not in our favor, we take it personal, or we take it like, why didn't they hug me? Or why didn't they love me? Or why didn't they say hi to me? Or why did they say those things about me? Or why it's like we're telling our own story, right? Based on oftentimes how we feel about ourselves, right? That internal projection that's happening. But also the pattern that happens, as I was mentioning before, that from early on, we do seek constant validation from the outside.
Yeah.
We do seek constant validation. And so I'm going to give you an example of like what happens in my world. So I go and I do a presentation or a training, right? And in person, like I get people moving and we're talking, and it's like, it's very dynamic. And I typically will get very good feedback. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what happens when you do your job well and you like what you do and all those things, it's like you get a lot of accolades for it. And you start to become sort of addicted to the look at how good I am. Look at how fabulous I am. Yeah, she's so good. She's so great. And when you don't have a strong sense of self, and you recognize that, for me anyway, I'm coming in as a channel and I'm coming in to provide, and I'm offering something to people, but I'm simply a channel for that. When you are in the space of receiving all of those accolades, all it takes is one person to put on their feedback or to give you feedback that you sucked, that your timing sucked, that you told too many stories, that you did, like, one person. And because you're so engaged in the accolades and you mean so much to you, that one person can bring you to your knees.
Yeah. So are you saying, like, don't give any, try to keep it, the feedback, neutral?
No, what I'm saying is, here, let me shift it to a different experience. So if you were sitting with a supervisor, okay, so if you can imagine, and your supervisor gives you all the positive things that you said that you did. They say, you're great at this, you're great at this, you're great at this. However, what do you walk out with?
Always the however.
Always the
Yeah.
however. You always walk out with the one thing that they said that you're not good at. And then we tell ourselves a story about that. We're like, oh, she doesn't like me. I knew she had it out for me. Or I can never be good at that. I have tried so hard and I'm never going to. It's like whatever your story is, that's the story you're going to tell, right? And we all have different stories on how we're going to make sense of that. And so what I mean is, if we can come to the state of recognizing that I am showing up as my best self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning how to do things. I give myself grace. Even when I'm learning new things, I know I'm going to fall back and move to old patterns of behavior because that's human nature.
Yeah.
It's like, if we can come from that state of knowing, then we're not as dependent on the positive, and we're not taken down by the negative, and we're really coming from the state of simply being.
Mm-hmm. That's a powerful place to be. I can think of many, many coaches that I am friends with that, we get paralyzed with content creation because we're so afraid of what people will think.
Yeah.
But in his book, he says, when you're immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering.
Yes. But the opinions is not only the bad stuff,
Both.
it's also the good stuff.
Yes.
And I think that's what happens even in the spiritual community, when spiritual teachers or mediums or whatever, they get all these like incredible accolades for how amazing they are and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you have to keep yourself in check. Mm-hmm. Because the ego is going to want to say, I'm different. See how different I am. See how amazing I am. Look at me. Pay attention to me. Right?
Yes.
And then that's when we get out of alignment. And that's why so many people in the spiritual community, it's like, you have your experience of somebody on stage or in the books or online, but when you're with them, and then you're like, oh, like, this really is an ego-driven experience because they haven't kept themselves in check. It's really easy to fall into the, look at how amazing I am.
Mm-hmm. Very easy. I mean, none of us are immune to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I hear don't take things personal, I don't just mean like it's landing in a way now that I'm pissed, I'm defensive, I'm irritated, I can't believe you said that. Why would you do that to me? That it's not just that. For me, it's living from the state of knowing who I truly am, and that you get to have your own experience of me. And you get to have your own experience of whatever it is your life is unfolding as.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be a part of that, but I don't have to be, I'm not going to take that personal.
Mm-hmm. Mic drop on that one. It's like, you get to have your experience of me, whatever that is. And you don't have to share it.
Yeah. You can keep your opinions about me to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. in a loving way, of course. But yeah, that's a powerful place to be. We all have, room to grow when it comes to our ego. I always say, like, sometimes I'll say, like, is your head going to fit through that door?
Yeah. And then there's another balance with that. Like, my daughter's a really good example of this. One of the things I worked really hard at is for her having a strong sense of self. She has a super, super strong sense of self, and it's really phenomenal to watch that. She's also not dependent on what other people think of her. She doesn't really care. My kid dresses the way she wants to dress, and she feels good about how she shows up. And so she has this strong sense of self that I think sometimes people don't know what to do with that because they don't feel that about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that part of really any comments or anything that are said to her, that practice of just recognizing, they get to have their own experience of you, but it doesn't have to impact how you think and feel about yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Any, let's see. Mark left.
He had to leave. He said, don't take it personally.
All right. Any reflections or questions if anybody's hanging with us? Just want to remind everyone we will not be here tomorrow. We will be here on Wednesday.
We'll see you on
topic.
Wednesday.
Awareness is all we say and do. Yep. And all, yep. The awareness is such an integral part. It's actually all of the beginning parts of our sacred journey is awareness. And then it moves into a different state of awareness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for hanging with us.
Thank you. We'll see you on Wednesday.